And I'm just going to quickly introduce Alex so that we can get started with this exciting session on making AI work for large enterprises and how enterprises can select and implement the right CX tools. Everyone, Alex is the Senior Director at People.ai. He leads AI deployment and customer success strategy for enterprise projects. He has 11 plus years of experience, has managed large-scale AI implementation for Fortune 500 clients, and his work has involved emphasizing cross-functional collaboration and impactful outcomes in CX transformation. We've left some time for if any of you have any burning questions, Alex would be very happy to take them. So you can write all of them in the Q&A tab, but that's it from my side. And Alex, you can go ahead.
Thank you for the super kind introduction. As mentioned, I lead implementations here at People.ai. So a big part of what I've done the past 5 years has been to roll out AI products to the enterprise. And I think we're starting to see how that's starting to change. And I'm really excited to talk today. I do hope it can be engaging. So feel free to drop in questions into the chat. And then, of course, we'll save time for Q&A at the end. Let me go ahead and get started by just sharing my screen, and we'll jump right into our talk today. So I'm super excited to talk about CX and AI. Obviously, have been in this space now for a while, and I think the change that we're already starting to see, but the future that we're able to envision is really exciting. I don't think there is a better time to be in this part of the industry. You'll probably see I'm going to use CX and CS sort of interchangeably. We refer to as customer success here at People.ai, as well as customer experience. But I think this space, when we think about it, the big takeaway for me is that if we think about our businesses and our business models in terms of how we service customers, there's always been a trade-off that we've had to make where we can't offer the top tier white glove professional services approach for all of our customers. It just doesn't scale. And so we've had to make tiering. We've had to make trade-offs in terms of, okay, this type of customer is going to get this level of touch. This type of customer maybe get a digital touch. I think the exciting thing that we're starting to see about these tools is that we can envision a future where the quality and the level of service that we give all of our customers is much more similar to that white glove approach, because we're going to be able to streamline and optimize so much of the tedious task, but also use generative AI to be proactive, to give our customers exactly what they need at the different parts of the customer journey, and not rely on essentially the bottleneck of our teams, just simply because we never have enough people to do all the things that we want. So really excited about this topic, and very glad we get to dive into it today. I wanted to start off by just highlighting some thought leadership that I had found recently that sort of helped shape my thinking. The Brookings Institute, a think tank here based in DC, recently published a report called Generative AI, the American Worker and the Future of Work. They had looked at some data that OpenAI had shared with them, specifically about the capabilities of ChatGPT 3.5. And what they then did is they used data from the US Department of Labor to map the tasks that OpenAI had said that ChatGPT would be good at to jobs in the job market. And what their big takeaway there is that this technology is going to have a greater impact on what in different parts of the world might be referred to as white collar or professional jobs. And the list here that stood out to me are these 4 areas. These really relating to things that a lot of our teams do as part of their day-to-day. Of course, there's no customer experience or CS specific occupation group here, but I see this as really a heads up and in some ways a warning to all of us in this space that possibly somewhere around 50% of the tasks that our teams perform on a regular basis could be impacted by the use of LLMs. And I'm a big believer that this impact is going to happen on a much tighter time frame than many other of those technological revolutions that have happened before. And so for how I'm approaching this with my team is really thinking about the next 12 to 24 months. Where do I want to inject and use LLM-based technologies, generative AI, to help my team to target certain tasks, certain processes, to make them more effective and to create a better customer experience? When we think about how we go down that path of using LLMs with our teams, with our customers, what I find when I meet customers and I start talking about this for the first time with them, it feels like they watched one of these two movies the night before they talked to me. And that is, they either watched the movie Her or they watched Terminator, meaning the discrepancy in some way between how people think about AI, but also sometimes their level of expectations, as well as I think it's fair to say worries of AI, often don't line up with the reality that we see today. And so I think this is an important part for us all to be remembering, is that as we either use AI with our own teams internally or integrate it into our tools to use with our customers, where people are coming from and how they approach this technology really matters. And so I wanted to put forward a couple concepts here that we've used to help frame the conversation with our customers. One, just to sort of have a shared language about what we're talking about, but two, also to help them start to operationalize in their own minds how this technology can be used. Those two categories being augmentation and automation. You might think there might not be much distinction there, but this really helps set off the path of, one, it helps shape the goals of your project when it comes to implementing these tools, or it can help you in terms of how you're selling them to your customers. But it can also help people start to understand what are the required capabilities of the tools that I'm either buying or creating to accomplish these goals. Because I found too many times when these are crossed, when people think that they're trying to achieve automation, they don't realize the level of depth or the breadth of the data and capability they might need to do that. And thus, the project would eventually end up being a failure because they don't have the capabilities required to hit that goal. So when I say augmentation, when applied to the CX perspective, we're talking about helping our teams, helping customer experience do the job faster or better than they were before. Whereas automation, we're completely moving the responsibility for that task to an LLM or to a different tool. Again, really simple when you break it down like this, but I always find when I start a conversation and I don't define the path that the team wants to go on, it again, it can cause confusion about what type of requirements would be necessary for the project. There's also going to be a level of progression in the sophistication of AI tools. And in full disclosure, I stole this from a very smart AI engineer here at People AI. This is how he has started to talk to me about the tools that we're building. And I thought I would share it here because it helped for me start to understand our own roadmap of our capabilities, but also talk to our customers to get them comfortable about, okay, where is it at today and where might it be going in the near future? The first level of AI sophistication, just around it being reactive. I think most of us have some experience with AI tools today, whether they're just called AI tools or whether they're called something else, but where you're going and you're just you're getting data. Maybe it's a frequently asked question bot, something that is fairly reactive to the needs of the user. The second, of course, is going to be a bit more sophisticated. And apologies, I've lost my cursor. The second level is going to be around pulling. And I think almost everyone has had experience at this point. Now we're almost 2 years past the point where ChatGPT launched. We all have that experience of going and pulling data from a chatbot, of asking it questions, asking it for advice, and pulling that. Our third level of progression is eventually going to be a concept around push, or something that's more proactive, that is anticipating your needs and sending you information, not just on demand, but when you actually need it before you may actually know you need it. And so just translating this a bit, when we think about that reactive AI sophistication, most people have had some level of experience with this today. It's relatively basic AI engagement. That pull level, where we're getting into a more interactive or semi-proactive, where perhaps you're able to set alerts to say, hey, when this data point is seen, send me this information on some sort of cadence. And of course, a lot of our teams, a lot of our products that we're talking about get really exciting when we're in this more predictive or more proactive level of sophistication. Let me just talk about how these levels of sophistication translate for CX. I think there are 3 levels or 3 places where you can start when it comes to either deploying AI products internally with your own teams, or if you're selling CX tools to large enterprise. These are, again, 3 areas where you would start. The first would be around customer engagement data. And by this, I mean all the data that comes from how you go to market, whether it's the emails or the meetings you're sending, maybe it's your call recordings or transcripts. Most importantly, and what a lot of people miss, is all the data about their customers, whether you're using lean data or Zoom Info or People AI. They're all really critical to know who you're talking to with your customers. So using that is sort of, I would say, is foundational for every tool that you want to deploy, whether internally or externally. If you're not capturing and organizing your customer engagement data across the entire surface area of go-to-market, no matter how fancy your AI tool is, it's going to feel very generic. It's going to feel very off the shelf. It's not going to be catered to your teams and how they engage with customers. It also probably won't then really appreciate or understand your customers. Sure, you can put in your prompt of, okay, I sell into the Fortune 500, or I sell into the medical device industry. That's really not enough. And what all of our teams are craving for when it comes from customer engagement data is, what should I do next with this specific customer? Not something generic. I don't need another playbook. I don't need another generic, coaching advice that I can sort of just pull off the internet anywhere. I have this specific problem with this specific customer. What should I do next? And that's where I think we're starting to see some really exciting developments. When you're able to capture your customer engagement data, AI really lights up as a result. The second level here, thinking about renewal qualification. Probably any CX team these days who's involved in renewals has plays around renewals, plays that they run with their customers, plays that they track internally. Maybe they have checklists or scorecards or playbooks that they put into CRM that allow everyone to run the same play at renewal. What's still missing here is that if you have renewal qualification as part of your remit in customer experience, you still have to have humans checking things off the list or completing the tasks. And then even if you have that, let's say everyone's perfect at doing it, as managers and leaders, we still have to go and we have to go and still qualify and make sure that renewal is on track, to give our own gut instinct. We have to listen to the stories being told. We have to listen. Have you talked to procurement? When was the last time they got back to you? Hey, who's your champion? What's their title? What do they do? We have to apply a lot of our own experience into any type of deal qualification process, whether it's renewals or new business. But when it comes to CS, I found that the best CS leaders, they have a really good gut instinct about whether a deal is going to be renewed or not. And if you're able to take some of those aspects of that gut instinct and put it into an AI tool, give it all of that data, both customer engagement data, you should be giving it your CRM data, or any other data you're collecting about your customers. We're actually starting to see use cases where generative AI can apply your methodology, apply your process, have the context of customer engagement data, and do the qualification of the renewal in advance before anyone looks at it. And so then as leaders and managers, as well as our teams in the field, they're able to get coaching, they're able to get guidance about their renewal without us having to wait for the weekly renewals call that everyone hops on and tells their stories and has to defend what they're doing. Like we get it live and in real time and catered specifically for the renewals that we're working on. So really exciting use case there. And I think we're going to see more and more CX teams start to rethink how they do that ritual of renewal forecasting, because they're going to be able to use AI in ways that we've thought of before, but really haven't operationalized in this process. And then finally, I think the most exciting piece that we all want to get to one day is we all want to get proactive alerts about when a customer might churn. We know that there are so many factors that go into why a customer churns. Maybe it's poor customer support. Maybe the implementation wasn't complete. Maybe their account manager or CSM has not been able to drive adoption of the product. All these factors create a good level of complexity about why a customer will churn. It's also, it's very rarely that a customer will just tell you, hey, it was because of X, Y, and Z. Sometimes they do, and that's great feedback. But in many cases, we have leading indicators of churn well in advance of when it actually happens. Now, the really good teams have those leading indicators built out in a dashboard that their entire team can look at. The next level of that, of course, will be a generative AI product proactively sending you the alert about the churn event and giving you a prescriptive action to take that's catered to that specific customer. As you can tell, I'm a bit of an optimist when it comes to some of these tools and capabilities, but I really do think that we see all of this in some form over the next 12 to 24 months. And so I think it's incumbent on a lot of us to start getting our teams ready for this, but also start to be prescriptive about where do we want to start and where do we want to end up. And to that, I've been using this AI adoption matrix to help sort of show teams that while a lot of them think that the path of AI adoption might just be a linear and up to the right, I'm not seeing that. And I think that that doesn't appreciate how much change might be required from both our teams, as well as just the customers, the market and customers in general. What I'm seeing is a adoption curve that is looking more like this, where we're going to stay in the augmentation, maybe semi-automation range for quite some time. And it will only be when the technology has advanced that we're going to just see this exponential leap. And again, this is why I'm sort of making the pitch that all of us have to start thinking about what does life look like in that top right quadrant for our teams, for our products, and for our customers. Because it's going to be here quicker than we think, but it's also going to sort of cross the chasm much faster than we're anticipating. So if we don't start to think about what does that world look like now and start to build that roadmap for our teams, for our customers, we're really going to be behind by the time the technology and the market advances to those capabilities in the next few years. And finally, I'll leave you with sort of this this anecdote that I find really helpful when I talk to my teams and to the customers who are just starting on their journey. It's really, really important that we start with the data, whether it's customer engagement data, persona data, whatever data that you think is going to be most impactful in terms of the AI tools that you're going to either use or deploy to your customers. But it's really important that we don't let data alone lead us. And I'll give you a story about one example where that went wrong. This is Charlie Reap. I'm a big football or soccer fan, and he was actually the first person to apply data analysis to the sport. He did this in the 1950s, and he did this by attending every game and having a pencil and a paper and captured some incredible data analysis manual by hand. And what he found when he looked at all the data at the end of the season was that goals scored, were more often to come when there had only been 3 passes leading up to it. So his takeaway from that was, well, teams should try to get the ball down the field as quickly as possible, directly as possible, to thus create more goal-scoring opportunities and to win the game. What this led to was the tactic of route one, or direct football, that really took hold in England in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. What this didn't appreciate, and what he obviously could not capture using the techniques at the time, is that anyone who has played the sport knows that the scenario for when there might only be three passes exchanged, there's a lot of variability in football. There are a lot of reasons why it might only be three passes lead to a goal, but that doesn't mean that you always want to kick the ball down the field immediately. And where this immediately ran into problems where teams had different tactics, possession-based tactics that could make space, that could drag players out of position, this technique failed miserably. And it led to the decline of the English football team much through that period that this technique had been applied. And so I want to leave you with that as just an easy way to sort of remember that, yes, collecting the data is going to be critical for our teams, but because we're in such the early days of sort of understanding this technology, continue to apply, your own expertise, your own insights on top of the data that you collect. With that, let's turn over to some Q&A.